Hey, I'm Yogi Don, your octogenarian yogi. When I began yoga in 1996, I was 57 years old and stiff as a board. I could hardly reach below my knees. In these videos, I'll share what I've learned over the years about yoga's ethics, its philosophy, its poses, its breath work, and meditation. I hope you'll subscribe and share these videos. Okay, so let's get started. May we be protected together, may we be nourished together, may we create strength together, may our work together bring fulfillment, and may there be no disharmonies among us. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. Hey, I'm Don, your octogenarian yogi. In the second grade, I remember the teacher saying that nobody is perfect. At the time, I felt puzzled because, well, I thought I was perfect. And then in second grade, when I got glasses, I was forced to rethink that assumption. Somehow, a slight imperfection had creeped into my life. Now when I think back on this, I have a good time chuckling over it. As we all know, none of us are perfect. We're all dealing with one imperfection or another. Shortly after I began teaching yoga, I did an introductory weekend training course to learn to teach yoga to people with multiple sclerosis. The experience of teaching these people was eye-opening and very rewarding. As I took more MS-related courses, I saw that many of these teachers were themselves dealing with MS. To a person, they credited their ability to lead a near-normal life to their practice of yoga. Perhaps the most remarkable man I met was Eric Small. Eric was diagnosed with MS at the age of 22. He has taught yoga to people with MS for about 60 years. And today he's an internationally recognized top-level yoga teacher. As a young teenager, Matthew Sanford was returning home from a Thanksgiving holiday with his parents when the family car went off the road in an ice storm. Matthew was severely injured in the accident, paralyzed from the chest down. Later, Matthew found yoga as a way to heal his psyche and return his body to health. His book, Waking Mind and Body, details his struggle. Today he teaches yoga and travels the country, giving motivational talks and addresses. One of my grandsons told me about one of his teachers, a man named Arthur Boorman. Arthur was a paratrooper and a veteran of the Gulf War. He was overweight, walked with crutches, and was stiff from years of forced inactivity due to his service-related injuries. His doctors had told him that he just had to learn to accept it and live with it. But some little spark began to burn brighter and brighter in Arthur, and he decided to see what yoga might do for him. One thing led to another, and over time, Arthur went from walking with arm crutches to running. Someone once asked a well-known Indian yoga master who could and who couldn't do yoga. His response was straightforward. Anyone can practice yoga. Young man can practice yoga, old man can practice yoga, very old man can practice yoga. Man who is sick can practice. Man who doesn't have strength can practice. Except lazy people. Lazy people can't practice. Unless you think that yoga can only help with physical issues, I'd like to tell you about Amy Weintraub. She was a television producer who suffered from depression. Today, after struggling with depression all of her life, Amy uses her practice of yoga, breath work, and meditation to maintain her mental, emotional, and physical balance. In James Joyce's The Dubliners, there's a short story entitled A Painful Case. Early in the story, Mr. Duffy, the main character, is described as living a short distance from his body. Mr. Duffy is disconnected, living in his head without regard to what's below his neck. As the story unfolds, Mr. Duffy nearly finds happiness, only to let it slip through his fingers. He chose not to get off his duff. He chose to remain in his comfortable, rooted rut. When we look at people like Eric Small, Matthew Sanford, Arthur Boorman, we tend to see the obvious, their physical accomplishments. And if we were to meet Amy Weintraub, we might never know what she'd been dealing with. But what we may miss in all of these examples is the mental energy that their successes required. They were motivated not to give up. Mr. Duffy wasn't motivated to change. It's not just lazy people who can't practice yoga. It's also those who can't find the motivation, who can't light that fire under themselves. For whatever reason, they choose to remain where they are. Eric Small, Matthew Sanford, Arthur Boorman, Amy Weintraub, they weren't lazy. They found the motivation to take charge of their lives and to move forward. They and many other yoga teachers and practitioners use yoga and its practices as ways to deal with physical and emotional issues that we may never be aware of. Yoga truly is available to anyone who is willing to do the work. When we look at how yoga has impacted these lives, we see the physical results and forget to reflect on what it took for them to get where they are today. We don't see, or we can't focus on what it might have taken for them to get where they are today. Their determination, their motivation, their will to win. If we're living apart from ourselves, how do we go about reconnecting? How do we come back together? While we tend to think of yoga in terms of the physical, I think it's very important to understand that it has a non-physical side as well. We're more aware of the physical aspect because that's what's most obvious, but its mental, emotional, and spiritual sides may actually be more important. If we're playing a team sport, we want all the players to be playing together, not doing their own individual thing. A scattered approach rarely achieves our goals. Working together as a team is what brings us across that finish line. Yoga is uniquely positioned to pull our physical, mental, and emotional selves together so that we can accomplish our goals. Within the yoga tradition is the concept of the koshas. I don't want to load you down with a lot of jargon, but sometimes we need to use certain key yoga terms. The koshas are layers, and according to this tradition, we are made up of layers, sort of like an onion. I'll briefly describe the koshas and maybe get into them in depth at some other time. As I said, the idea of koshas is that we are composed of layers. There's the physical layer that is constituted from the food we eat. Over that is the energy layer, the vital force that energizes the physical layer of the body. Surrounding both is the thought body, which activates and controls the energy and physical bodies. Layered over these three is the wisdom body that controls and directs the others through its discriminative choices. And finally, embracing all is what is often referred to as the bliss body, which is the experience of bliss, happiness, or lasting joy. The point is that all these layers are interconnected and interrelated. When the physical body is out of whack, the other layers are going to be skewed also, leading to dysfunction through all of the other layers. This reminds me that shortly after I began my yoga practice, Dr. Lori Alvord, the first female Navajo surgeon, was at our medical school for a series of talks. I attended one of her talks and remember being struck by how similar the Navajo view of the individual was to the yoga view, where illness points to an imbalance in the mind, body, spirit, family, community, or the environment. But coming back to yoga, I'm also reminded that when I was in India studying the Yoga Sutras with Swami Janeshwara Bharati, and how he talked about the four functions of the mind. Again, I'll be brief because we'll look into this more deeply at a later time. But the mind is divided, according to this idea, into four functions. The sense processing mind, or buddhi, the stored impressions, or chitta, the ego, ahamkara, and the mind's discriminating function, manas. If our actions or activities are governed by what feels good, or by our unconscious, or by our ego, we often get into trouble. It's only when the discriminating mind, buddhi, is in charge that we make the right choices for ourselves and work towards our goals. So it's important that we find balance and learn how to remain in this state of balance. Yoga is unique in its ability to help us find and achieve this kind of unity. In fact, a clue to this lies in the meaning of the word yoga itself. The word comes from a Sanskrit word, yuj, that literally means to yoke together, as in when an oxen or a team of oxen are yoked together to pull a wagon or a plow. The word yoga then means to unite or to join together. So while my second grade teacher was right, no one is perfect, yoga can be a way for us to move in the direction of connectedness, integration, and balance. Yoga is a journey, and one that I believe is well worth our effort. Okay, we've talked about it enough. It's time to actually do some poses. Okay, we're here to do some yoga, some simple yoga, things that you can do that I think anybody can do. And I'd like to just mention that you can do these. I'm going to be doing them in the dining room chair, sitting. But you can also do them standing. You can also do them on the floor. I'm wearing just regular clothes because one of the things I want to get across to you is that you don't have to be wearing special yoga clothes to do yoga. You can do it any way, with anything. All right, let's begin. I'm going to begin by taking off these shoes and set them aside. And then I'm going to turn the chair so that you can see how I'm sitting in this chair. I'm sitting a little in front of it, toward the front edge of the chair, with my back away from the chair back. That's because the tendency for many of us is to slump, or when we're sitting back like this, to sort of just relax back into the chair. What I want you to do is to begin sitting toward the front, where you can begin to strengthen your back muscles to keep your back nice and straight and long and tall. Then we'll bring the shoulders back and just let our hands rest on our thighs. Now I'm going to turn back to the front. And what we're going to do is work on the joints from the top down. Simple movements. And we're going to begin back away from the chair back and just letting the head come down, the chin come in toward the chest. Try to keep the shoulders back so you're broad across the chest. And then as you hold the pose, relaxing the neck, shoulders, and back, feel the chin come in a little closer to the chest. And we can hold that for a few breaths. One of the things we do in yoga to sort of estimate our time is to count breaths. So you can count 3, 4, 5, 6 breaths, whatever, till you feel like your chin is coming as close as you can, bring it to your chest. And then on an inhale, we're going to roll the head up on the right side, circling around to the back, and exhaling, coming down on the left side. Inhaling up on the right, and down on the left. We'll do that one more time, and then we're going to reverse. So when the chin reaches the chest, this time on our inhale, we'll reverse, inhaling up left and down right. And we'll do one more. And then rebalance the head. Check our posture, shoulders open. And with our next exhale, now we're going to turn the head to the right, keeping the head and eyes level, body forward. Look as far to the right as you can. Try and relax the face. I tend to want to pull my eyebrows up, so I have to remind myself to relax my face. Inhaling back to the front, and exhale, rotate to the other side. Inhale back to the front. And again, I'm going to turn to the side. This time I'm just going to turn on the chair. We're going to do what I call turtle. Slightly press the head forward, keep the shoulders back, and then draw the head back, tucking the chin. Release on the inhale. Exhale. Pull back, drop the chin. Exhale. Release. Exhale. One more. And relax. Now we'll drop the arms to the sides. And again, I'm still sitting out toward the front of the chair. My thighs are coming straight out from my hips. My knees are right over my ankles. So rather than sort of sitting in a sloppy position, we want to bring the thighs straight out, knees over the ankles. All right, dropping the arms alongside, I'm going to grab the chair leg with my right hand. My left arm going to float to shoulder height, rotating the palm up, and then a seated side bend. Hand on the chair leg for support. Grip the chair leg. Now, tendency here is for this arm to want to roll forward. We want to try and keep it back. And to help us do that, we can turn our head and look up through the arm. And as we open in the left side of our body, we can let that right hand slip down just a little further, holding us so we don't fall over. And then the other side. We do to one side, we do to the other. Now I feel my clothes are beginning to restrict me, so I'm going to unbutton this cuff and come back. And back to center. Now I want to scoot back toward the back of the chair, and we're going to do a seated twist. Left hand reaches across the body, finds the back of the chair, and then the right hand reaches around wherever it finds. So with the hips pressed into the chair seat, we're looking back over the shoulder. And again, try and relax everything else that you don't need to hold yourself in the pose. And front and other side. And back to front. Okay. Now let's come back up toward the front of the chair. Just before you fall off the edge, you're going to walk the feet wide apart, and with the hands on the knees, stretch up and hinge forward. Now, obviously, if you were standing, this wouldn't work so well. It'd be a little tricky to do. If you were seated on the floor, it might not be quite so easy to do. What I would do, if I were sitting on the floor, would be to sit cross-legged, what we call sukhasana, with one leg in front of the other, or whatever other easy sitting pose you can find that lets you do the pose. and then hinge back up. I'm going to walk my feet back into center. Flex and extend the left leg and the right leg. And finish. Now, what I consider to be one of the most important seated poses that we do, and this can also be done on the mat, on the floor, but it's probably easier to do sitting in a chair, and that's to bring the right ankle across the right knee. Now we want to have the ankle bone outside the knee, outside the thigh bone. So rather than here where we begin to put pressure in the ankle and loosen up some of these ligaments that support the ankle, we want to keep the ankle outside, the ankle bone outside of the thigh. And then we sit up nice and tall and hinge forward. Now, however far down your knee goes is fine. However far up your knee happens to be is fine. Try and relax in the hip and come as far forward as you can. Now, we're not rounding the back. I'm going to turn sideways here so you can see what I mean. We're not rounding the back to try and bring our nose down toward our knee. We're trying to bring our whole torso toward the leg. You'll feel a stretch, because what we're doing here is we're stretching out some of these muscles that end up being tightened and tensed and shortened because we sit so much. So this pose is helping to stretch out those muscles deep in the pelvis that help to hold us in a sitting pose and become short and tense. And sometimes I like to hold this a little longer because it just feels so good afterwards. And I'm going to come back up and turn back to the front. I'm going to hold the pose for a little longer. I'm going to tense this foot, activating these muscles in the front of the shin. Pull the foot forward and to bring the toes in toward the knee. And as you can see, I have a hand on my ankle, a hand on my knee. The hand on my knee is just gently pressing down, not hard. And I'm going to hinge back up. Now, the next thing that we can do that really is an important and a good thing to do is to let this leg come as far over as you can so that the leg is actually hanging outside the left leg. So we're beginning to stretch out these muscles and the ligaments in the outside of the leg. And again, we're going to sit up nice and tall with our hands gripped around the knee. And as we exhale, hinge forward. Neutral spine, flat back. Open across the chest. Try and keep the neck lined up as though you were sitting upright. And hinge back up. And release. We'll do the other side. Ankle bone outside the thigh. A little gentle pressure on the knee. Engage the foot. And begin hinging forward. As we continue to hold, we can allow our body to come a little deeper because the body is beginning to loosen up, to stretch out, to accommodate to what we're asking it to do. And I'm going to hinge back up. Let this leg come all the way out. However far it comes on your body is perfect. There's no absolute perfect pose except whichever one works on your body. And it's a progress, it's a work in progress. We move a little forward with each time we do the pose. We come a little deeper, our bodies accommodate a little bit more. If we can do these poses, these series, 2 or 3 times a week, you'll begin to see some real progress in a very short period of time. And we'll hinge back up. Now I'm going to come to standing. We've loosened up our bodies from head to toe, pretty much. And we need to work on a little bit of strength in the legs. So for that, I'm going to do some squats, and I'm going to use the chair here as a way to help me go down as far as I can and to come back up easily. So with my feet wide apart, excuse me, and the toes out slightly, I'm going to come down. Come down as far as you can and back up. Down and back. Exhaling down and up. Exhale down. Inhale up. And there you have it. So, however many times you do it is fine. Try and do it, as I said, 2 or 3 times a week. And maybe weekly or maybe every other time, you find that you can add another set, another repetition. All right, there's one other thing that I would like to show you today. And that's going to bring me over here to the doorway. I'd like to work on balance. Working in the doorway is really a great place to do it because you've got something close by that you can help to support yourself. And we begin. The trick here is to not let the hip drop. So we'll begin engaging both legs, strengthening, and really engaging the side that we're going to use for our standing side. We'll begin with the right side, picking the left foot up, try not to let that hip drop, and remember you've got that door casing right there to help you support. Hold it as long as you would like. 3 to 5 breaths for starters, and then the other side. Remember, don't let that one hip drop, keep it up. Really work on keeping the strength in the standing leg side. You can also easily do this at a kitchen counter or bathroom counter. And back to standing. And I'd like to thank you for joining me today. And that will be it for today. Thank you. May our bodies be strong, relaxed, and healthy. May our minds be calm, clear, and serene. May our hearts be filled with loving kindness, and may we live our lives in harmony with our true inner selves. May we be friendly toward the joyful, compassionate toward the suffering. May we celebrate the good in others and remain impartial to their faults and imperfections. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. I hope you'll subscribe and share these videos.